and welcome to the next episode of the 6 Degrees Readers Collective, where we recommend books and authors. Today, I have 2 books, the Autobiography of Malcolm X and Poetry Pharmacy. Malcolm X was one of the most influential and greatest African Americans in history. This is a book I have long wanted to get my hands on. But I was never into autobiographies, and this exception proved to be a phenomenal read, which I should have expected from a book that always had a place in the list of best non-fiction books of all time. The Autobiography of Malcolm X was published posthumously in 1965. It is an account of his life, more or less in his own words, written by Alex Haley, and is in the form of a conversational narrative, which does mean that you pretty much live the life of Malcolm X while reading this book. It's based on more than 50 plus interviews between 1963 and 1965, when Malcolm X was assassinated. Born in 1925 as Malcolm Little, he takes us through all the key events in his life in a very segregated and racial society. His childhood in relative poverty, the society and people around him, his young adulthood, and his descent into a life of crime, where you do meet a host of very colorful characters, and his eventual prison sentence. There, it was no surprise that him learning to read and the prison library changed his life. He converted to the new religious movement called Nation of Islam under Elijah Muhammad and traveled the country recruiting African Americans to his faith. But it was his thoughts and philosophy on black nationalism, black pride, and Pan-Africanism that really attracted a following. At the end, you realize that this is a phenomenal account and really a self-reflective confession of a person. You're taken through America in the 30s till the 60s, and you see an evolution of a person's views on religion, race, and the ultimate struggle for civil rights. His assassination was at a time of great turmoil in America, but you do feel that the trajectory of civil rights would have taken a different path if he were alive. Ultimately, what Malcolm X did was speak out to millions of oppressed African Americans, and most importantly, he brought a feeling of renewed hope and self-respect to a generation. When we see the events happening in America, we realize that civil rights is still very much an unfinished agenda. The author Alex Haley was a writer whose works of historical fiction and reportage depicted the lives of generations of African Americans. He is widely known for his special citation Pulitzer Prize-winning book Roots. And incidentally, the Autobiography of Malcolm X was his first book, which transformed him into a celebrated writer. The next book is a recommendation from our guest Barrett of Rebel City Distillery from episode 4. Poetry Pharmacy by William Seighart. The idea first started off where he set up a tent with a couple of armchairs and a prescription pad. On the advice of a friend, he offered visitors 10-minute slots and prescribed short poems from a variety of authors, which offered comfort, delight, and inspiration. This took off, and now we have the Poetry Pharmacy, tried and true prescriptions for the heart, mind, and soul, a self-help book using poetry. This was released in 2017, and I particularly liked what it says on the cover. Whether you're suffering from loneliness, lack of courage, heartbreak, hopelessness, or even from an excess of ego, there's something here to ease your pain. William Seighart is a British entrepreneur, publisher, and philanthropist, and the founder of the Forward Prizes for Poetry. There you have it, folks, our 2 recommendations for today: the Autobiography of Malcolm X by Alex Haley and Poetry Pharmacy by William Seighart. While we're on the subject of poetry, here's a beautiful poem by Akhil Katyal, one of the finest voices from Delhi, India. One day, when he was about 10 or 12, he asked his mother, "What's my caste?" Some boys in the school were asking. I didn't know what to say. The mother got up in the middle of a supper. "Beta, if you don't know it by now, it must be upper." Such beautiful and poignant lines. And as they say, poetry can be expressed in a multitude of ways, including rap. Here's a work by an artist, Vedan with Word, a Malayali rap song called The Voice of Voiceless. I will leave you with this, and we'll see you in the next episode of 6 Degrees Readers Collective. Cheers.
കണ്ണിൽ കാണാത്ത ജാതി മത വേർപാട് യുഗങ്ങളായി തുടങ്ങി ഇനിയും എന്നെ വേട്ടയാട് അടങ്ങി നിൽക്കുവാൻ അയ്യോ ഞാൻ പെട്ടപാട് എന്റെ മുതുക് നിന്റെ വഞ്ചനയാലേറ്റപ്പാട്. ഞാൻ പാണനല്ല, പറയനല്ല, പുലയനല്ല, നീ തമ്പുരാനുമല്ല, ആളേലൊരു മറ്റുമില്ല. ഇനിയും കാലമില്ല, കാത്തിരിക്കാനാകുകില്ല, പുറത്തു പോകുവാൻ സമയരുതരി പാടിയില്ല. എനിക്ക് വേണ്ടതോ എനിക്ക് വേണ്ടതല്ല, ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് വേണ്ടത് നീ തരാൻ പഠിച്ച്. ഞങ്ങളേറെ കൊതിച്ച് അതിനെ എത്ര പേർ മരിച്ച്, കണ്ട് കണ്ട് നീ ചിരിച്ച്. അല്ല 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 അല്ലരില്ല നാളതില്ല.